I apologize for the lower effort videos in the past few weeks. Life's still throttling me, not in a sexual way, and I still haven't tapped yet, not in a sexual way. So sometimes I feel like I need to yap in order to take my mind off of life. But low effort or not, I still want to make it somewhat meaningful. So today I just wanted to talk about how fucking cool Death Stranding 2 is. I've been taking my time with it, not just because it's a game that kind of warrants that approach, but also because in my current emotional state, it's been hard for me to just kind of sit down and devote my attention and focus on a video game for long stretches of time. But whenever I do get into Death Stranding 2, it has this way of lulling me into this almost hypnotized state of mind where I feel at one with Sam Porter Bridges. Death Stranding 2, just like its predecessor, is still an exhausting game. Like whenever you finish doing a drop, you feel like you've gone through some shit. And the world in Death Stranding 2 is vaster and more perilous and a lot easier to get lost in. But traversal has also transformed in quite significant ways. One of the first things I noticed that evolved from Death Stranding 1 to Death Stranding 2 is that when you slide, you now maintain your momentum. And it's hard to overstate how much of a big difference that makes in just getting around this world. Like, it seems like a small thing, like, oh, you get to slide now, but it's actually quite meaningful. I've gone back to Death Stranding 1 a few times to get some videos for my Slop ambient channel that I made. I don't like Slop. I don't like putting out just whatever, but I figured if I'm going to make a Slop channel, then it might as well be something that people can use to help themselves relax or fall asleep. So I've been capturing scenes from video games that I think are particularly beautiful or have particularly interesting sound effects. But as far as I know, there's no clip in Death Stranding, so I have to manually get to the places still, and I can use Cheat Engine or whatever. But even when I'm just trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, I noticed some significant differences between Death Stranding 1 and 2. One of them is the controls, which is a big thing. But another thing is just like the ability to slide is such a huge deal. Death Stranding 2 has significantly built upon the traversal mechanics of the first game, and it's a lot more capital F fun than the first game. Most people will notice that there's a lot more combat, there's a lot more combat opportunities, and there's a lot more gadgets to use in combat situations. That's one thing. Sure, you get more shooty bang bang action. How beautiful this life can be. But beyond that, the game is doing a lot more to keep you moving forward. The game always wants you to be making forward progression. In my Death Stranding analysis part 1, which is the only part that's out right now, I talked about how there's two modes that Death Stranding allows for. There's the soy boy mode and there's the pro gamer mode. And more I'm feeling like in Death Stranding 2, those two systems are merging, or the pro gamer mode is kind of winning out, in my experience at least. I'm still making time to pick up packages and revisit old facilities, but I am making less time to rest. I just find myself with this urge to keep moving forward no matter what, partly because I'm really interested in the story, but even beyond that, just when I'm doing deliveries, I just find myself not resting as much, not taking as much time for breaks. I'm using the canteen more. I'm just moving forward by whatever means necessary. In combat and stealth situations, I'm encouraged to be a little bit aggressive. When delivering packages, I'm encouraged to build this forward momentum. Playing online definitely helps with this because there are a lot of times when you might plan poorly, but you can get your slack picked up by someone else who's put down a device that you desperately need. But with more tools like the electrobiotes and the chlorobiotes, the ability to fill canteens at timefall shelters, the ability to use private shelters as a transponder to warp from one place to another, the ability to use the Magellan to warp from one place to another, the coffin board, the fact that it's easier to now pick up items when you're on a trike, and simple things like the sliding mechanic. It's It's all stuff that feels to me like it's saying, don't turn back, keep moving forward. I mean, even with resting, now that there's a day-night cycle, I'm not just resting to progress timefall forward or to restore my stamina. Now I'm almost resting in just this utilitarian sense where if I want it to be nighttime, I'm going to rest to automatically move time to night or to move time to morning. And this could just be the way that I'm playing, but in my experience, the game is giving you so many tools, like the ability to take your backpack off and move even faster than you ever could before. And you can do it all by just holding one button. You can auto arrange your cargo even faster. You can take out your strands and bind your cargo so that they don't fall over as much. And in my experience, the game is a lot more forgiving about those little bumps and trips and other things that would have completely ruined a delivery in the past game. A lot of this could be chalked up to quality of life, but I think there's something a little more significant than that. It feels like the game is definitely trying to push you in a certain direction. That direction being forward. In Death Stranding 1, if you held down L2 and R2 to center your balance and then held down the X button while you were moving, Sam would do this kind of little shuffle. And that shuffle was good in my experience for getting over those patches of terrain which would be highlighted with yellow, where things are uneven and you might be taken off balance. But it was really slow and not terribly useful in a lot of situations. In Death Stranding 2, they've changed that animation to this skipping thing, like a really long hop. And it feels like you're just gliding over the terrain when you use this thing. It takes up stamina pretty quickly, but the speed boost you get from it and the way it just kind of hovers over terrain really feels like you're getting pushed forward and you don't have to worry as much about falling over. Even with the sliding, it goes really fast, but I don't think there's been a single time that I've bumped into something by accident while using it. It feels like in a lot of cases, the game just kinda has your back. And that's not to say you can just ignore the terrain. Like I was trying to drive a truck over the sand dunes and kept plummeting when the sand dunes would lower elevation really quickly, and also they have a really hard time getting up sandy hills. But then again, rather than being expected to turn back, I'm just sort of nudged to go in a different direction. But that direction still always leads to my destination. It may just take a little longer. And there are so many tools for navigating any kind of different scenarios you might come across, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. I'm really loving the corpse board. I think the corpse board is cool as shit, but that means I can't really use my trusty floating carriers as much. And it's also just sometimes too fast, and it's very easy to bump into shit when you're using it. But man, if it isn't fucking cool and lightweight. And that's another thing about Death Stranding 2 is that it's just so wacky in the most capital F fun way. Death Stranding 1 was very aesthetically weird. It would be something you could show to someone like I have and be like, hey, look how fucking weird this is. And they'd be like, yeah, that's super fucking weird. But they would never touch the game. They would never really, fully appreciate all of the wackiness it has to show. Death Stranding 2 continues a lot of that superficial aesthetic wackiness. And I say superficial in the sense that you can just see it with your eyes and instantly note it for how weird it is. It's not superficial in the sense that it has no actual narrative meaning, because I think a lot of it does. But yeah, you've got the doctor who has one backwards hand. Yeah, you've got the weird chiral cat. Yeah, you've got Dollman whose animations are at a different frame rate than everyone else's, which is really, it's just weird and cool. But I also mean wacky in the sense that the deeper you explore into this game, the more random Easter eggs you uncover, to the point where I just find myself smiling. Like, even given my really very difficult emotional state right now, Death Stranding finds a way to just make me smile and chuckle with this childlike joy at how weird and fantastic it is. It's just like plunging deep into a pool of cerebral ecstasy and coming out shivering with excitement and the anxiety of fresh ideas. Everything is interesting. Everything seems to have weight and meaning to it. And I keep finding myself so curious about the next thing I'm going to uncover. I had a prediction I was going to make at the end of my Death Stranding analysis. At the time, Death Stranding 2 hadn't come out yet, but it had been announced. I was going to say, I think Death Stranding 2 is going to be fundamentally different. It's going to provide a different experience. And I was wrong, but not entirely wrong. wrong. I think Death Stranding 2 at its heart is still very much Death Stranding. It still has that same vibe of you're a postal worker and you're moving one foot in front of the other in order to get these packages to the people who need them. But the world is vaster and prettier, and it feels more familiar in this game. The gameplay provides more options and scenarios for interacting with this vast world. And while the first game felt a lot more hostile and lonely and isolating, like you were pushing against some unyielding force of human separation, Death Stranding 2 feels like budding civilization. I feel more connected than ever. Even just in the narrative sense, it feels like it's teeming with life. I also mentioned in Death Stranding 1 how there were dragonflies and how some smaller animals might have been able to survive and find their place in new post-Death Stranding ecosystems. At the time, I didn't realize that there are actually birds in Death Stranding 1. I mean, they're even literally in like the first area of the game. If you just swing the camera around to some of the buildings near Capital Knot City, you can see birds just flying around. And I think there might be other animals as well that I missed. That said, Death Stranding 2, of course, takes that idea and expands upon it. Now there are animals all around, even fucking robotic animals. There are even chiral creatures now, which serve as another obstacle, which I thought at first would be really easy to get around, but they have a way of just catching you off guard. It's a neat new addition, and there are several different kinds, each with their own way of traversing the world and interacting with Sam. There are a lot more porters out in this world going around and delivering packages, and some of the hazards feel like they've taken on minds of their own as well. Death Stranding 2 feels like it breathes in a way that Death Stranding 1 didn't. Death Stranding 2 is a different beast. It's friendlier, it's more welcoming, and it's taking your hand in its own and inviting you to walk with it on this journey. As far as the story and characters, I really miss Margaret Qualley, but I love the sort of casual, fun, girl power shipmate vibe that you might find on a space station somewhere where people are holed away together for months. Sam still brings this sort of awkward divorced dad energy.
Hey, Sam.
Hi. What are you guys doing?
Nothing important.
Can you take a picture of us?
Sure.
But there's this really strong sense of community and friendship among everyone on the ship. I mentioned in my anti-woke grifter video how sex is discussed as a purely biological, procreative feature of human existence, and I'm seeing more of those themes play out in the symbolism of motherhood. Fragile caring for Lou in Sam's absence. Rainey and this woman at the Via Libre who have been pregnant for a while and want desperately to bring their children to term but can't. There's a profound sadness there that's being explored. Or these women who escaped from sexually violent men and built this community around each other. There's a bit of a shared experience among mothers in this game. And it's one that was hinted at in Death Stranding 1 with the idea of still mothers, but that wasn't really the focus. The focus was instead on fatherhood, Cliff's relationship to Sam, and by extension, Sam's relationship to Lou. Motherhood was explored more from the perspective of the child, Sam's feelings for Amelie and for President Bridget Strand. But in this game, there's a bit of a reversal. Motherhood is taking center focus from the perspective of the mother. And in the process, Sam's emotions as a father are also teased out here and there, though I haven't explored far enough to see where this goes. I also did notice that Margaret Qualley was prominently credited at the beginning of the game, and you better not fuck me on this, Kojima. I'm kind of rambling. I hope I've said something meaningful, but yeah, I'm gonna continue playing this. It's just been a really fucking cool time, and while I'm going through my own emotional turmoil, it has given me reasons to smile. I've also played a little bit of Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is, it's fine. It's fine. It looks pretty. It's fine. I didn't realize it was just going to be a shot-for-shot remake, which I think is the best way to do this kind of remake, but it's kind of made me think, you know, what's the point of remakes anyway? Like Resident Evil 4 remake, which I liked, was more of a reimagining, which I liked. Silent Hill 2 remake, which I kind of liked, but I'm starting to sour on it a bit. It like pretended to be one thing, but sold a very different vibe and experience, which was more codified and had a lot less of that raw primal terror terror that Silent Hill 2 Original was able to deliver on. Also, I've posted about this, but I just needed to make it a more poignant point here. Don't be the guy who's so wrapped up in anti-woke conspiracy that you think A, consulting companies have editorial control over what the creatives do in their own game. That's not how consulting works. And B, you use a character who's canonically the victim of sexual assault to make the point about women not being as hot in your remake. Holy shit, what has art discourse come to? But I'm gonna shut up now and I'm gonna go. Don't expect weekly videos, by the way. I think I've posted a video once a week for the past few weeks. I've just been trying my best to keep my mind off of things while I try to work on some of these larger projects that I have queued up. Keep me in your thoughts, guys, if you can. I've been struggling quite a bit and could still use some love and grace. And I hope you all are doing well yourselves and remembering to make time for each other. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Wait a minute. Girl boss? A literal girl boss? Wheelchair? Forced diversity?
The fact that I'm black.
Guys, is Metal Gear Solid Delta woke?